Even if we issue a statement, it may not reach the younger generation, who rely primarily on social media for their information. That may be true. We are living in a time of confusion and division. Also, writers no longer have the influence to sway public opinion like they did in the past. Still, I believe that the practice of speaking out as a collective voice among people who work with words is something that should be protected. I feel that the traditional power of the pen is weakening. How is the PEN Club responding to social media society? If the traditional power of the pen refers to the writing activity of an author, we select our words, refine our writing, and then, after an editor's eye, we finally create a work and send it out into the world. Words that go through this process are completely different from spontaneous words, and they carry more weight. These words are slower, and in that respect they cannot compete with social media, but we must continue to speak out. Freedom of expression is a fragile thing that can be taken away at any moment if we do nothing. Poverty lies at the root of xenophobia. The Japan PEN Club issued a statement, knowing it would spark outrage. An interview with President Natsuo Kirino. August 20th, Wednesday, a press conference on July 15th, when the emergency statement was issued. From left, Executive Director Kyoko Nakajima, President Natsuo Kirino, and Vice President Kenta Yamada, photo courtesy of the Japan PEN Club. The Japan PEN Club, comprised of writers, editors, and journalists, issued an emergency statement on July 15th, stating, "Fraudulent attacks against foreigners under the guise of election campaigning will destroy our society." The Japan PEN Club has previously issued statements protesting the forced passage of the conspiracy crime law in 2017 and a joint statement, jointly signed with the Japan Writers Association and the Mystery Writers of Japan, regarding Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. But what led to this latest joint statement against xenophobic speech? We spoke with novelist Natsuo Kirino, who became president in 2021 and is currently serving her third term, about the significance of PEN Club activities in the age of social media, the risks of disseminating information, and her future writing career. About the Japan PEN Club. The Japan PEN Club was founded in 1935 at the request of PEN International, an international organization of writers founded in London in 1921, with author Tozen Shimazaki as its first president and approximately 100 other writers. The club continues its activities under the principles of the International PEN Charter, which states, "We oppose all forms of suppression of freedom of expression." The club has 1,166 regular members, including not only writers but also poets, playwrights, journalists, editors, and researchers, and 41 supporting member companies, as of the end of March 2025. This serious situation cannot be ignored. The Japan PEN Club has issued various statements in the past, but this joint statement does not seem to be directly related to our purpose of protecting freedom of expression. Please tell us how the statement was issued. The statement was issued at the suggestion of Kyoko Nakajima, Executive Director of the Japan PEN Club, a writer who writes about issues surrounding immigration control and other matters. During the recent House of Councillors election, announced on July 3rd, voting on the 20th, we noticed xenophobic statements among some political parties, both ruling and opposition, such as zero illegal foreigners, Japanese people first, and a controlled foreigner policy, which treated foreigners as criminals and a nuisance to society, and we felt a sense of crisis about the spread of these statements. While there have been issues with hate speech in the past, we could not ignore the fact that the situation has become even more serious, with political parties taking advantage of election campaigns to openly make hateful statements as their policy. I believe that not only Nakajima-san but many of the directors felt the same way. On the other hand, xenophobia may be considered just one opinion or way of thinking, and I think it poses difficult problems. However, if we consider that freedom of expression can only be guaranteed in a peaceful world without war and where everyone, including foreigners, is treated equally, issuing this statement is in line with the purpose of the Japan PEN Club's activities. Were you concerned that issuing a statement during the House of Councillors election period could be misunderstood as meaning that the Japan PEN Club is engaging in political activities? There was discussion about whether now was the right time to issue it. However, We concluded that the situation was so outrageous that it was best for the PEN Club to issue a statement. While it is important to issue such a statement in a timely manner, it was particularly significant that it was issued at this exact moment. The widespread use of online meetings allowed for a very smooth process, from drafting the statement to discussing it at the board meeting and then issuing it at the subsequent press conference. Poverty, the root of xenophobia. At the press conference, you cited poverty as a factor in the rise of xenophobia. Could you please explain this point? It feels like there is a growing sense of oppression among people. Isn't it possible that this frustration is being vented and directed towards vulnerable groups such as women and foreigners, leading to an outburst? The basis for xenophobic claims is that foreigners are being given preferential treatment while the Japanese people themselves are suffering, or that foreigners are abusing their rights. Most of these are fake news or rumors that can be proven false with proper fact-checking. Some people are verifying these claims, but in a situation where they cannot keep up, the rapid and sensational spread of information unique to social media leads people to believe the misinformation. Even if we issue a statement, it may not reach the younger generation, who rely primarily on social media for their information. That may be true. We are living in a time of confusion and division. Furthermore, writers no longer have the influence to sway public opinion like they did in the past. Still, I believe that the practice of speaking out as a collective voice among people who work with words is something that should be protected. I feel that the traditional power of the pen is weakening. How is the PEN Club responding to social media society? If the traditional power of the pen refers to the writing process of an author, we select our words, refine our writing, and then, after an editor's eye, we finally create a work and send it out into the world. Words that go through this process are completely different from spontaneous words, and they carry weight. These words are slower, and in that respect they cannot compete with social media, but we must continue to speak out. Freedom of expression is a fragile thing that can be taken away at any moment if we do nothing. That said, that doesn't mean we're not taking any measures against social media. We would like young people to join us in our activities, so in addition to having social media accounts as the Japan PEN Club, each committee, such as the Freedom of Expression Committee and the Women Writers Committee, is also focusing on disseminating information on social media. What will you do about the aging population? You mentioned wanting young people to get involved, but I hear that the aging of our membership and declining membership numbers are issues. Currently, the average age of our members is very high, with only a handful of members under 40. On the other hand, when I attend PEN's international conferences, I see young people in their 30s who are very active. I hope that the Japan PEN Club will also create something like a Young Writers Committee in the future to expand horizontal connections. It might also be a good idea to hold symposiums, mainly featuring young writers and commentators, to discuss fascinating themes. The general public may have an image of the Japan PEN Club as a group of writers or a gathering of liberals, but I don't think that's necessarily a positive thing in today's world. In reality, our members come from a variety of professions, including journalists, editors, and researchers, so I think it's fine to think of it as a more casual forum. If there are motivated people who want to get involved, we'd love to join. On the other hand, with regards to the decline in membership, given that the country as a whole is entering a phase of population decline, I think we need to change our thinking to one of shrinking while still finding a functional direction. In that sense, we need to properly redefine the PEN Club's raison d'etre. Are there any other concerns you have regarding freedom of expression? I'm very concerned about the rampant cancel culture, the movement to denounce and socially exclude people or groups who make inappropriate remarks. Of course, I think there are actual cases that deserve social condemnation, but there are increasingly cases where the problem is exaggerated as a negative effect of the internet society. As an artist, of course, you should be careful about what you say, but if you become too concerned about cancel culture, it can act like a word hunt, watering down your expression and ultimately making it difficult to understand what you are trying to say. In particular, the moment your expression is published online, such as in an e-publishing, it is taken out of context and all sorts of excerpts are made. I feel like this trend has grown significantly over the past 5 or 6 years. From the perspective of freedom of expression, this is a very serious issue, and I think we all recognize that whatever we do could potentially spark an uproar. In a sense, the issuance of this emergency statement was also prepared for an uproar. In order to avoid me being the only one to receive the criticism, one of the board members thoughtfully added the words Board of Directors below Chairperson Kirino Natsuo. This is in light of recent trends and is something that has never been done before. Regarding your future creative activities, about your own creative activities. In July, you published Darkness, Shinchosha, the final installment of your series. What themes would you like to tackle in the future? One theme I'm currently preparing is what would happen if conscription were introduced for young women. It may seem like science fiction, but there is a growing trend of misogyny in South Korea, and as an extension of this, there are frequent calls for conscription to be introduced for women as well. Furthermore, in Norway, where gender equality is advanced, conscription is imposed on both men and women. However, it is a selective conscription system, and individual wishes to join are respected. Incidentally, in Norway, men and women even share rooms in barracks. In a society where gender equality is the norm, even this probably doesn't bother people. Looking at it this way, conscription for women is actually a surprisingly real idea. I see the idea of military service being introduced as a way to address poverty and unemployment among young people as a dangerous issue, not an impossible one. After the interview, the risk of backlash when disseminating information is a major issue not only for creative individuals but also for ordinary companies. With a growing number of cases where companies have been forced to apologize for unexpected backlash against their TV commercials or social media posts, should they unconditionally succumb to emotional social media reactions, even if their customers are their number one priority? This issue is similar to the customer harassment that has become a social problem in recent years, and I believe there are cases where a firm stance is warranted. In any case, maturity is required across society. Author profile: Oki Morikawa, travel and railway writer and journalist. Member of the Japan Pen Club. Contributes articles on a wide range of topics, including travel, railways, hotels, and urban development, both to magazines and online publications. Has appeared in numerous media outlets and written serials. Recent works include A Journey to Kanagawa Railway Abandonments, October 2024, Kanagawa Shimbun. The book was selected as the 7th Good Travel Book by the Japan Travel Writers Association. The Kanagawa Railway Heroes series will begin serialization in the Sunday edition of the Kanagawa Shimbun newspaper in June 2025.